On the far left is Pempa Tsering, who's president of the Central Tibetan Administration. So I actually thought I'd start with you, Pempa, and kind of work our way out. Obviously, a lot of the Chinese tactics in this area start at home and start with the repression inside China, as well as their subjugation of their neighbors and those ethnic minorities that make up Chinese territory. And so why don't you start us off about what do you see from a Tibetan perspective about Chinese tactics in recent years?
Thank you. Policy that the Chinese government is adopting since Xi Jinping came into power. The idea is if there are no nationalities, then there won't be nationality issues. So how do you do away with nationalities? So in the beginning, there were a lot of assimilationist policies that were implemented. So what China is doing right now is to set up colonial-style boarding schools where about 1 million Tibetan children are in these schools starting from the age of 4. Now, when they come home, they don't speak Tibetan at all. They speak Chinese. So the whole idea is to strike at the very root of our identity. In the case of Tibetans, we have a language that is one among the 15 oldest languages in this world. They are striking at the Tibetan language. And the Tibetan Buddhism is also linked to Tibetan language because we are the only country that has transliterated all of Buddha's teachings. And it's available only in Tibetan language. As recent as a few years ago, one of our monks worked on a Tibetan to Tibetan dictionary, which is 223 volumes. And we presented one to the Czech National Library here and another to the Library of Congress in the United States. And that speaks for the language. So they are striking at the language. And because of that language, we have Tibetan Buddhism. And because of Tibetan Buddhism, we have our way of life. So they are striking at the very root of our identity, same as what they are doing with East Turkestan, and they have done with Inner Mongolia or Southern Mongolia, as they like to call themselves. So natural resources, they want to harness every natural resource in Tibet because Tibet is huge. It's 2.5 million square kilometers and Tibet has been unexploited because as Buddhists, we always learn to live in harmony with nature. Overall, China's ambitions are not restricted to the region. You also have a lot of border issues with India. Only after Tibet's occupation by communist China, there is a common border between India and China now. But India still calls it Indo-Tibetan Border Police, Indo-Tibetan Border Force. That underlies India's position on Tibet also. So going beyond the region, I'm sure China's ambitions are global. So you're talking about Global Development Initiative, GDI. China is talking about Global Security Initiative, GSI. And China is talking about Global Civilizational Initiative. And they are expanding beyond the Global South. In the multilateral forums now, they have taken over most of the competencies that the US used to enjoy. We have also witnessed the parade that the Chinese government organized last month, where you had Kim Jong-un, and you have Putin, and you have Iranian leaders, nexus of all evil coming together. And if they want to export their system of governance, their understanding of what human rights means to the international community, so that is where I think the international community has to be more careful about how to interact with China and how to get China involved in international multilateral forums.
From Pempa, in the Tibetan case, what actions do you want to see with the understanding that the US may be moving in a different direction right now?
I echo the thinkings that were expressed by other panelists in creating more awareness on China's motivation around the world. And I think that the question is, how is China able to do all this? It's the money, right? So the basic question is, how do we address this? Do you give more business to China and then enable China to do all these things that you complain about? You know, I have some European friends who ask me, oh, the dragon is biting at us. Then I tell them, dragon at one time was very weak. It was not in a position to bite anybody. No, it's the United States, it's the European nations, it's Japan, it's Taiwan. All your investment in China made today what China is. And now they are biting at you. But knowing that China is biting at you, the dragon is biting at you, if you still keep feeding the dragon, then whose fault is it? we should not be enabling China to do all the things, creating all the dead economies in Africa, Latin America, in Southeast Asia, and then taking over land, like Sihanouk Vale in Cambodia, you have the Coco Islands in Burma, you have Hambantota Port in Sri Lanka, Gwadar Port in Pakistan, then you Djibouti, up to Africa. So China has covered so much in maritime Silk Road also. So I think it's very important to understand, because with European nations, 27 European nations, if you look at the 2024 numbers, Europe exported only 200 billion to China and imported 600 billion. So you have a trade deficit of 400 billion every single year. United States have more than 300 billion trade deficit with China. And even India, despite all the border issues and all that, the trade is increasing. So if we give more trade, more business to China, then China has all the reserves. This year, particularly, I'm sure it will cross $1 trillion of foreign exchange reserve. So when they have all this money, then they spend it on space technology, they spend it on robotics, they spend it on chips, quantum computing, dual-use technology, creating all these dead economies around the world. So I echo what Emeka said. Even in Latin America, I traveled to several countries. This time also I'm planning to travel, but there's too much pressure from the Chinese government. The Mexico, last time I was there, the former foreign minister of Mexico's nickname was China Boy. There is no real understanding of what China is doing around the world. That is why awareness is very, very important in Africa and Latin America. Southeast Asian countries know exactly what's happening, but they are not able to do much because of their economic dependence on China. And now I hear that imports from China is increasing in many countries, including Europe. The last time I was in Germany in June, they said in 2 months, imports from China has increased by 20%. And the same thing is happening in all the Southeast Asian countries. If you remember, soon after President Trump imposed his tariff, Xi Jinping went to Laos, he went to Cambodia, Vietnam, and Malaysia. So that was to build a force against United States, but they themselves were in trouble with United States on tariff. But the other purpose was to make sure that these countries don't raise tariffs, because China produces 30% of world's manufactured goods, and 37% of that goes to United States. And so far, they've been up and down. From 145, it's down to 30%. So even now, it's going on. The trade war is going on. So let's see how things shape up in a few days from now, and how all this US-China tariff and how European and other countries also respond to growing China. And you are all responsible for making China what it is today. So I think we need to learn that lesson and then make sure that we don't make China more powerful than what it is already today.